Hello, Colorado Realtors. I'm Scott Peterson. Thank you for joining me for another edition of Legal Bites. Today is Friday, the 6th of October, 2023. Beautiful fall day. Leaves are changing. Nice time of year. We've got record high inventory in terms of residential listings, 3% interest rates. At least two of those things. One of those things is true, I guess. It's a beautiful fall day. Nonetheless, I hope everybody's doing well. I wanted to jump on and address something that has created some a little bit of confusion or questions in the industry over the last several weeks as we've seen some MLS policy reinterpretations, I think is the best way to describe it. And what this has to do with is the mandatory offer of compensation that is and has been for many, many years embedded within any realtor-owned MLS. And so the MLSs that you all participate in, there has always been a mandatory offer of compensation. When you list a property, the listing broker makes an offer of compensation to a cooperating prospective buyer broker who procures a buyer for the listing. And the policy hasn't been changed really, but it's been sort of reinterpreted in some way. And so what the policy is and has been is that there must be a mandatory offer of either a dollar amount or a percentage amount. And for many, many years, NAR's interpretation of its own policy has been effectively that needed to be represented with an actual dollar or an actual amount, dollar amount. Could be $1. There's never been a mandatory minimum commission in this embedded offer of compensation, but there had to be some dollar amount. So it could be $1, it could be, a thousandth of a percentage point, presumably, and that would comply. And about 4 or 5 weeks ago, NAR looked at that policy and reinterpreted it essentially to view that as $0 or 0% are in fact an amount that is in fact meets with their policy. And so we've seen many large MLSs in the United States essentially adopt that policy. Here in Colorado, we've seen RE Colorado adopt it, and I think a handful of smaller MLSs. And I know, I fully anticipate that pretty much any realtor-owned MLS in the United States of America is going to be acknowledging NAR's interpretation of that policy to reflect the fact that an offer of compensation, while it has to be listed, can in fact be 0, and 0% or $0 now complies with that policy. And so what does that mean? Well, it means that there still is a mandatory or required data field that must be completed and something offered. While that can be 0, it can be anything that the seller and listing broker have negotiated through the exclusive right to sell. So there's certainly no preclusion on offering compensation whatsoever. That can be done just as it's always been done in terms of complying with the mandatory offer, but that's going to be driven then by the exclusive right to sell listing agreement, and whatever the listing broker and the seller agree will be the cooperating commission paid to a buyer broker who procures a deal. To the extent that that negotiation between the seller and listing broker is that 0 cooperating commission will be paid, then that's what would be reflected. And anything between 0 and 100%, probably unlikely, but anything in between there can be listed as an offer of compensation within the MLS. And so, again, changes, if you consider dramatic changes, the fact that as of a year ago, at a minimum, a broker would have to offer a penny as compensation to a cooperating broker, to the fact that now they can offer 0 as compensation to a cooperating broker, not necessarily earth-shattering, but certainly a reinterpretation of a policy that had been interpreted differently for many, many years. And so as you start to see your MLSs shift and adhere to NAR's policy or reinterpretation of its existing policy, I think the best practice and the takeaway, and anybody that's been listening to me talk for a couple of years now, has really been, for buyer brokers, the importance of negotiating or being able to negotiate your commissions with your buyer. That's ultimately the best way you can be assured that you will get paid whatever success fee you have negotiated with your buyer pursuant to an exclusive right to buy listing contract. Whatever success fee you've negotiated with your buyer, whether the seller is going to ultimately be paying that or whether the buyer is going to have responsibility for paying that. That is and always will be, always has been, frankly, the very best way to ensure the commission that you anticipate working for is secured and you have a contractual ability to collect that. So just to clarify, there's not any preclusions on offers of compensation. And I think obviously we'll still see the sellers, certainly I would hope, see value in being able to assist in compensating a buyer's broker, because in many cases the buyer is not able to in connection with a closing. But we have seen a policy reinterpretation that certainly will likely have additional impact on the compensation offered by a listing broker MLS participant to a cooperating MLS participant buyer broker in a transaction. So just wanted to clarify that up. Hopefully it helps, and figure if I do a video, sometimes it's easier than addressing it in the course of dozens and dozens of different hotline phone calls. So anyhow, take care, guys. Enjoy the rest of your fall, and we will see you again on another edition of Legal Bites. Thanks so much.